Welcome to Science Goes to the Movies, a look at the stories of science and how they change our culture. I'm Lisa Beth Kovetz. Today, we're going historic with a look at HBO's new series, Beforeigners. Our guest is Thomas Shippey, author of, among other things, Laughing Shall I Die? Lives and Deaths of the Great Vikings. Tom, welcome to the show.
Well, hi, Lisa. Thanks very much for inviting me. Glad to be here.
In Beforeigners, a time rift in Norway has been spitting Scandinavians from all kinds of time periods into the 21st century, creating a massive headache for modern Oslo social services. In one of the early episodes, one police officer admonishes another for using the word Vikings to describe the time travelers, telling him that it's a bit of a slur amongst some of the travelers. What's the word Viking, and why would it not describe all the time travelers?
Well, I think we make a mistake these days. We think that Viking is an ethnic label, and actually it's a job description. Vikinger, in the Vikings' own language, Old Norse, that just means pirate, marauder. Sometimes it just means robber or even highwayman. So I can quite see why a Scandinavian might say, hey, who are you calling a Viking? I've never been a Viking. My family, no one in my family has ever been a Viking. How dare you say things like that? No, Viking, as I say, job description, shouldn't be used to mean Scandinavian.
In Beforeigners, we meet Tommy, played by Stig Heinrich Hoff, a fearsome Viking in his day, now an Uber Eats-esque delivery food man. In a different century, he's a different man. And in your book on page 17, you write that a 21st century psychopath would be a 9th century well-adjusted man. What did you mean by that?
Like most of us, I'm not used to killing things. I even have humane mouse traps, you know? I've never had to kill a cow with an axe. I've never had to cut a pig's throat, and I'm not sure I could make myself do it. But if I was a lad brought up on a Danish farm or a Norwegian farm 1,000 years ago, this kind of thing would probably be routine. Now, if you can cut a pig's throat, maybe it's easier to cut a person's throat. And another thing is this: we regard killing people as murder, but they didn't. Their word murder, mordvig, doesn't mean killing people. It means killing people and trying to conceal the fact. What you're supposed to do if you kill someone in the saga world is at the next inhabited place where it is safe to do so, you must announce the killing and take responsibility for it. And also, of course, to tell the truth, take credit for it. Well, in our day, someone who's kind of thinks killing things is routine and thinks killing people is a reasonable method of dispute resolution, we might well say that's getting on towards being a psychopath.
Were Viking behaviors shocking in their days worldwide?
I think shocking isn't quite the word. First, certainly it was surprising. The start of the Viking Age is often thought to be 8th June 793, when an attack was made on the monastery on the island of Lindisfarne. And that was the Pearl Harbor of the early Middle Ages. No one was expecting it. They couldn't see it coming, which is rather odd, because actually that kind of thing had been very common a few hundred years before, but then suddenly it stopped dead. And I think an interesting question is what made it stop? But anyway, when it started again, that was very surprising indeed. And the other thing was, of course, that by that time, most of Western Europe was Christian, and the Vikings weren't. They were pagans. So another thing that was shocking was that they didn't respect monasteries or abbeys or convents or churches. They'd attack them all. And that was not normal behavior. And I just add one thing, actually. Sometimes people were just plain disgusted by them. There's one incident where an Irish king sends emissaries to a camp of Danes, and he finds them camping there among the bodies of the Norwegians whom they just fought, and they're having a barbecue amid all the bodies. And actually, the scene is pretty disgusting. In fact, it's so disgusting, I won't go on any further.
We see that scene in the Vikings. I'm just thinking of it now. The scene where they are in Britain and they've been given land, and the native British are shocked and horrified by the blood rituals, the blood sacrifice. They throw blood on themselves and on their fields, and I watched that going, oh, that's gross. But that's dramatic. You know, they've done that because red is such a great color on the screen. But you're saying that sort of pagan, which is one thing, but blood everywhere was quite valid.
Yeah, well, I got to say that the Vikings obviously were shocking in that way, but it's not as if the Anglo-Saxons or the Franks or the Irish were immune to this kind of thing themselves. After all, our word bless comes from blotzian, which means to scatter blood. So bless you, I'm going to scatter blood. No, well, we've stopped doing that, but we used to do it. So, okay. I think you could say that the Vikings raised the bar, but their victims weren't a great deal better.
In the end of the first season of Beforeigners, we watch a bearded, confused time traveler suddenly remember who he was. And the Norwegian filmmakers used all their cinematic techniques to lead up to an astonishing reveal that this time traveler was none other than Olaf the Stout. And this American viewer thought, who the heck is Olaf the Stout?
Well, Olaf Hindigri, to use his own term. He is King Olaf II Haraldsson, successor to King Olaf I, also Saint Olaf, and also nowadays Holy Ole, the patron saint of Norway. So that's who he is. And he died on, let me think, 29th July 1030 at the Battle of Stiklastad. So that's who he is. And he's the patron saint of Norway, I think, because he went a long way towards unifying Norway out of a series of small kingdoms and very scattered kingdoms. So I guess that's why they picked him to be a saint, or to be their saint. Quite why he was a saint, that's not so clear to me.
Well, let's get into that. But before we get into that, let me say, very impressive. I can't remember my sister's birthday every year, and I'm very impressed by the way historians pull those names and numbers and dates out of the air. Very impressive. That food delivery character, Tommy, with the holes in his memory, turns out to be Thorir Hund, an ancient warlord implicated in the death of Saint Olaf. And all the modern people lose their minds over the killer saint and get Tommy fired from his crappy lunch delivery gig. But after reading your book, I'm wondering, based on the actions of the real Saint Olaf, does this poor guy Tommy deserve all their outrage? Was Olaf the Stout saintly in the modern sense?
No, I think is the short answer to that. But he had his saintly points. For instance, he was very strict about, I think it's the fourth commandment, which is keep holy the Sabbath day. One day, according to his saga, he was sitting on a Sunday and he was just doing nothing and whittling a stick with a knife. And his page looked at him and said very cautiously, "Lord, tomorrow is Monday." And he meant, of course, today is Sunday and you are doing something. And Olaf was so struck by the reproof that he gathered his pile of wood shavings and he put them on his palm of his hand and set fire to them. And he burned them to ashes on his open palm as a penance because he was sorry for breaking the commandment. Well, is that saintly?
It's not even useful.
No. It's very tough, though.
You know, I'm not going to... Yeah.
He was a tough saint, shall we say. But I think no one would mistake him for Mr. Nice Guy.
Did he impose his saintliness on other people?
Sure, he did. He was very keen on that. His idea was that everybody in Norway should obey him. And one of the things they should obey him on was they'd all better convert to Christianity and get baptized. And if they didn't do that, very nasty things would happen to them right away. So that actually, of course, meant he got a very good press from the church in later years. They thought he was a missionary saint, but he didn't convert people by gentleness and power of argument.
Uh, so where does the idea of being a loser or being a victim fall in the Viking psyche?
Well, I think being a victim didn't appear at all. They didn't think they were victims. Somebody else was. That was somebody else's job. Being a loser, now that's different because I think they were more sensible than we are. They knew that everybody lost in the end. Even if you were the great hero, well, one day you're going to be outnumbered or stabbed in the back or betrayed or caught by surprise or something. But certainly you're going to go down in the end. Everybody was going to go down in the end. And the important thing was how you did it. You couldn't win all the time, but you could lose well.
And is this tied to the overall concept of Ragnarok?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's built into their mythology, isn't it? That at the end, the gods and their human allies are going to fight the giants and the monsters, and we're going to lose. And that's the way it is. But actually, that doesn't mean you should change sides. No. What's important is resisting to the end. And you can control that. You can't control whether you win or lose, but you can control how you take it.
That's an extraordinary worldview. It's an extraordinarily different worldview that good does not win in the end. But okay, so then is there a good and evil, a moral and immoral in the Viking world?
Oh yeah, very, very much so, I think. But I would say again, perhaps the words we might use are honorable and dishonorable. They certainly had a very strong concept of what they call drengskaper, which is, what should we say, behavior appropriate to a noble person. I think one good example of that is there was a famous Viking called Thorkel the Tall. The Vikings in 1012 captured the Archbishop of Canterbury, and they wanted to ransom him. But the Archbishop refused to write the letter saying, I want to be ransomed. Just said, no, I'll take whatever you do to me. I'm not going to appeal for mercy. According to one of the chroniclers at the time, Thorkel offered all his possessions, except his ship, if the other Vikings would give him the old man's life, because he admired his courage. And then they got drunk and killed the Archbishop. And Thorkel was so disgusted that he took his ships and his men and changed sides and went over and joined King Ethelred, the Anglo-Saxon king, instead. All because, I think, and that's what Dietmar, the chronicler, says, because he disapproved very strongly of this murder of a brave but defenseless old man. It was not honorable.
Modern English language fiction writers are borrowing liberally from Norse mythology these days. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Anthony Hopkins' Odin is a father and a ruler with some serious gravitas. But in Neil Gaiman's American Gods, Odin is a trickster and a bit of a dick. In the original comics, and by that I mean in the ancient poems and writings, who or what is Odin?
Well, Odin is All-Father. He is the father of the gods. He controls the home of the gods, Asgard. His hall there is, as we all know, Valhalla, the halls of the slain. And to Valhalla go those who die in battle. They are destined to Odin. Well, that's all good, but actually, Odin always lets you down. He has his favorite heroes, but he will always betray them, and they will always be killed. And the reason for that is he wants them in his hall, Valhalla, because he doesn't know when Ragnarok will happen. And whenever it happens, he wants his team, his army, to be at full strength. And so he harvests his heroes to join him in Valhalla. And I think this is actually put very well in Neil Gaiman's book, American Gods. The thing about Odin is he's always playing a long game, and you aren't quite sure what the object of his game is, but it's something more complicated than we can figure out. So that's why he comes over as a trickster and unreliable, because his loyalty is not to us, it's to something else, and we're not sure what that is.
His loyalty, I'm guessing, I'm just filling in the story, is to winning at Ragnarok, which he knows he's going to lose, and he's going to sacrifice your life to his lost cause. Am I understanding that?
Well, that's a possibility, but the fact is, since Odin is playing such a long game, we don't quite know what his plan is. He may have some plan for survival after Ragnarok, but that is something we can't see into.
When we talk about these past things, it becomes so clear what a mind blower Christianity must have, or the root of Christianity, the love and the kindness of Christianity must have been a mind blower for the ancient world.
That's right. I think one of the things they found very hard to get hold of was the idea of Christian humility, where you say that you are an unimportant person. And I recall actually an Anglo-Saxon scribe who's writing his manuscript out, and he writes, as he's supposed to do, I so-and-so, Ser was servorum Dei, servant of the servants of God. And then he thinks for a bit and writes in the margin, the son of Mildred, a famous woman. So, yeah, I know I'm supposed to be humble, but I can't quite manage to be all that humble.
I'm humble, but my mom is super cool.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Professor Shippey's book, Laughing Shall I Die, introduced me to the idea of an imaginary, the adjective functioning as a noun, as a collective picture of an era derived from books, films, and television. And as an example, the modern imaginary of the American West is something that never existed. Tom, what is the Viking imaginary and how removed is it from historic facts?
Well, just as the Wild West, it's kind of gunfighters and sheriffs and shootouts and cowboys and Indians and all that. So the Viking imaginary seems to be berserkers and Valkyries and longships and scalds and drinking out of skulls and, all that, and blood eagles and all that kind of thing. It's a sort of mishmash and pulled out of different places. It's kind of, it's like a pack of cards. You shuffle the pack and get a deal that you got a different story. All of these things have to be looked at separately. And I think you asked how distant is it from historical facts? Well, there's always some truth in it, I think, but you have to kind of pick and choose. Berserkers, well, they keep on mentioning them, but we aren't quite sure how that works. Is it kind of drug-induced? Or is it some kind of hyping yourself up? Scalds, we know a lot about scalds. We know a very great deal about scalds. Okay, so they're real enough. Other things like drinking out of skulls, I think that's a mistake, actually. That just didn't happen. And Valkyries also, well, I think we can say that people believed in them, but have no evidence for them either. So some truth, some fiction, some mythology. All just like the Wild West, really. I mean, we know that there was such a person as Wyatt Earp, but we're not too sure exactly what happened in the gunfight at OK Corral, and people are still arguing about it.
And the Lone Ranger was actually a black man.
That's right, yes.
So why were the Nazis so focused on being of Viking heritage? Feel a cultural bond with the murderous psychopathy?
Well, I think actually, this is pretty sad, really, isn't it? It's another ethnic stereotype. The Vikings are all supposed to be tall and strong and muscular and blonde because they're all the kind of ideal Germanic type. And I guess on the whole, if you wanted to join a Viking band, it probably helped to be tall and strong. But I don't think they had any kind of requirement for having fair hair or anything like that. So I guess actually that we're in the grip here of a kind of rather late modern ethnic self-belief, which the Nazis adopted and which people are still drawn to in a way.
It's pathetic and shallow.
Yeah, that's right. I'm afraid that's exactly right.
The poem that inspires your book is the story of the lead character Ragnar in that very successful fictional series Vikings. And I watched, obviously, most of that series, and I never once heard anyone refer to Travis Fimmel's character as Ragnar Hairy Breeches, or in the more modern vernacular, Ragnar Fuzzy Pants. I feel like the History Channel missed something there. Why was Ragnar called Hairy Breeches?
I have to say, I've never heard fuzzy pants, and I don't like fuzzy pants very much. But there, okay. According to his saga, which I don't believe for a moment, he had to rescue a princess who was being guarded by a dragon. And dragon bite is notoriously poisonous. So what he did was make some fuzzy trousers, hairy trousers, boil them in pitch, and then roll in the sand. So the sand stuck to the pitch. And that meant that he had basically dragon-proof trousers. If it bit him, it wasn't going to get through. Okay, well, as I say, that's the story in the saga, and if you believe that, you believe anything, I guess. Why he was really called that, I don't know. He probably just had particularly fleecy trousers. Maybe he felt the cold.
I'm going to work very hard not to call him Ragnar Fuzzy Pants.
Okay.
The rest of the interview. For the sake of drama, though, the History Channel invented a character named Rollo, made him Ragnar's traitorous brother, who eventually marries the Franco king's daughter, and it was good drama. But who is Rollo historically?
Well, Rollo is the term that the French chroniclers use for a man who's called Hrolfr, and they called him Gungu Hrolfr, which means Rolf the Walker. And he was called Rolf the Walker because he was so big that no horse could carry him. And he was the son of Earl Rognvald of Norway. And he crowned his career of Vikingdom by being granted rule of Normandy by the French king, on condition, of course, that he obeyed the Frankish king's authority, and also he kept off the other Vikings. So it was a case of setting a thief to catch a thief. And he was given the kingdom, or I should say, the dukedom of Normandy in 911 AD. And he died in 933, and he has a very fine marble tomb in Rouen Cathedral. And there's only one funny thing about this. I've been told, but this is gossip, it hasn't reached the scholarly world yet, that they've looked at the bones in the tomb in Rouen Cathedral and they can't possibly be his. The DNA is all wrong. So I don't know what happened there, but anyway, he's supposed to be in Rouen Cathedral.
That is some serious scholarly gossip.
Yes, well, that's right. We'll find the truth one day, I guess.
Do we have any modern English words that come down from the pagans?
Well, of course, sure we have. We've got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's for starters. Tuesday these are Anglo-Saxon words. Tu is the Anglo-Saxon form of the Old Norse god Tyr, who's the one who put his hand in the wolf's mouth. Woden, of course, is Odin. Thor needs no introduction. And Friday is from Frey. So we have 4 pagan gods commemorated in the days of the week. But there's also what I call the arm and a leg problem. Arm is Old English arm, but leg is Old Norse legr. The Old English word for leg is shank. And we still know the word shank, but we've borrowed the Viking word leg. We also have another pair, which is wife and husband. Wife is English, husband is Norse, husbonder. So I guess there were a lot of mixed marriages between English women and Norse men. And the result of that was a kind of mixed language in which a lot of words were picked up from one or from the other. So our modern English language is in fact descended from that kind of Anglo-Danish mixture back 1,000 years ago.
You know, here at Science Goes to the Movies, we're always talking about the real science that lies beneath the fantastic science fiction fantasies. And we don't often get to talk about what those fantasies mean to us as a society, but I'm interested. And fantasy writing has blossomed and is only growing stronger. Professor Shippey, you're one of the leading authorities on several writers in this genre. Why do you think these fantastic stories matter so much to us?
In some ways, the Old Norse mythology fits modern reality very well. I was actually very struck by one writer, A.S. Byatt, wrote a book called Ragnarok, and she was a wartime child and she was evacuated to a city in northern England. And she had a book of Norse myths with the wild hunt on the front, with Odin leading the wild hunt. And she said, well, she knew all about that. She'd heard the wild hunt going by overhead. She'd heard the propellers. She'd seen the flashes. She'd heard the bangs as the bombs hit the steelworks at Sheffield. And she'd cowered under the stairs, which was their kind of air raid shelter, which is what you're supposed to do when the wild hunt goes by. So the Norse myths to her, well, that was what she knew herself. And then she went to Sunday school and they told her about gentle Jesus, meek and mild, and it didn't mean a thing to her. So the Norse mythology, with its aggression and its pessimism and its dynamism, I think that very much struck a chord for people in the long and troubled 20th century. And it hasn't quite gone away in the 21st century.
Your book, Laughing Shall I Die, was a fun read. What do you have coming up next for us?
Well, actually, I was thinking of writing one called Before the Vikings, and considering this question of the great disaster of the 6th century. What went wrong? Lots of things went wrong, all at once. Yeah.
Professor Shippey, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks very much indeed.